Hey there and welcome back to Mass Effect. My name is Pete and today we complete the first part of our journey to Virmire. We are getting closer to the game's finale and Virmire is kind of the starting point for the endgame, and so after completing the UNC besieged base assignment in the last episode, we really have no other option but to fly to Virmire and continue the hunt for Saren. For a change, there are no planets to survey in the system, so we can land immediately. And for our squad, we'll go with Liara and Tali, a combination that we haven't used in a while, but one that is very useful here.
Commander, I'm reading a signal. Must be our Salarian infiltration team.
Check out those defense towers.
Drop the Mako. We'll go in hot and take them out.
I'll get you in underneath their radar, Commander. Got a clean drop, Commander.
Alright, then I would say you stay safe and let us take care of the rest.
Stay out of range and continue evasive maneuvers until I bring those AA towers down.
I know the drill. Meet you at the camp once those towers are offline. Joker out.
Now, before we get going, let's quickly fast forward ourselves through the whole equipping process. We will switch Shepard to anti-synthetic rounds and also upgrade the pistols and armors for Tali and Liara. All in all, no major changes, so I decided to quickly speed things up. Now we can hop inside of the Mako, but there is still one more thing left to do before we get moving, and that is to spend 4 remaining talent points with Tali. We will spend 1 to unlock First Aid, this will give a slight boost to our healing abilities, and the remaining 3 points will go in pistols to slightly increase Tali's damage output. Now we can get going, and I think at this point we should recap a bit why we're actually here. Before we do that, however, 2 quick notes. Number 1, the small animals that you can see in the water around us, those are pod crabs, and just like the gas bags back on Eden Prime, we could kill those without any repercussions. We won't do that though, because we have more important things to take care of, and that brings me straight to my second point, the Geth. The Geth are present and in great numbers, and the majority of this video will be spent fighting our way through them. Those fights won't be particularly challenging, but they will occupy us more or less non-stop, so I will probably not be talking strategy for each and every one of them. Instead, in this video, with Virmire being one of the more important plot worlds, I would like to focus a bit more on the grand scheme of things, so to speak, and so while we're fighting our way through several groups of Geth here, let's talk about why we're actually here. And for that, I'd like to take you back to a conversation we had with the Citadel Council back after the events on Noveria.
Commander Shepard, we've received information that may be critical to your mission against Saren.
We've received an urgent message from one of our infiltration regiments in the Traverse. We currently have several infiltration units scattered throughout the border regions of Citadel space. This particular unit was gathering intel on Saren. Unfortunately, the message we received was little more than static. The infiltration team must be in a situation where they can't set up proper interstellar communications. But the message was sent on a channel reserved for mission-critical communications. Whatever they were trying to tell us, we know it was important. Considering your interest in Saren, we thought you might want to investigate this. Find out what happened to our team. The signal originated from the planet Virmire.
So, to recap, from the Salarian Counselor we have learned that one of his special task groups has sent a critical message right here from Virmire. The contents of that message were sadly not transmitted, but since the group was investigating Saren, it is safe to say they found something. And our task is now to meet up with the Salarians and learn what they found. Unfortunately, we have to take the long and uncomfortable way with the Mako to do that, because anti-air defenses are present and active. So simply swooping into the Salarian base camp with the Normandy is sadly not an option. Now at this point I also think it makes sense to learn a bit more about Virmire itself, because both the planet's location and situation give a good insight into why Saren might be active here. Now, the Salarian Counselor already informed us that the world lies within an area commonly known as the Attican Traverse. The Attican Traverse is claimed to be officially under Citadel control, however that is really only the case in theory, as the Traverse is a space with frequent unrest, including frequent pirate raids from the Terminus systems. And those Terminus systems are a force to be reckoned with, which is why the Citadel has decided to not interfere when things go south in the Traverse. And so, located right in this region of political instability is Virmire. Apparently there have been negotiations between the Citadel and Terminus systems to settle Virmire, but those negotiations never reached a conclusion, and so for the time being the Citadel has abandoned all colonization efforts. And so Virmire remains as an uncolonized planet, a planet well outside of the true reach of the Citadel. All in all, not the worst place to retreat to if you're a rogue spectre hiding with a large army of Geth. And at this point we should quickly get back to those Geth, because we have reached the first gatehouse. So far during our approach we have only been harassed by Geth on foot or in the air, while now for the first time we meet a larger group of Geth that is fortified. Now technically we don't need to clear this gatehouse to proceed, as you can see the gates are wide open and we could drive through them with the Mako, but since this is a completionist playthrough we will of course stop and take out all the enemy forces. By now it should also be pretty obvious why we brought Tali along for the ride. Since we're fighting Geth for a while now and will continue to do so for quite a while longer, Tali's wide array of tech abilities can really help us out here. And for me, in most cases, bringing Tali along also automatically means bringing Liara, otherwise we would be a bit short on the biotic side. Kaidan doesn't make much sense because Liara is definitely the stronger biotic, and with Tali in the squad we also don't really need Kaidan's tech abilities. Wrex could be a solid alternative to Liara, but then again he only has throw and lift available, and I like to have at least one person with lift or singularity in my squad, as those two are probably the best crowd control abilities in the game. As a matter of fact, this group of Geth stalkers over here is a prime example for that, as one use of Liara's singularity makes an otherwise very difficult fight a walk in the park. As a reward for our efforts, we can quickly loot the second of 2 containers in the gatehouse, and then fast forward ourselves back inside of the Mako, because the way on foot takes a few moments, and I don't want to drag out this video longer than needed. Once we're back in the driver's seat, we can proceed, and then it's only a matter of seconds before we meet our next enemies. The Geth have apparently switched to heavier stuff, and rightfully so. After all, up until now we have been tearing through their defenses quite easily. Now as always, the quick reminder that we don't have to kill Geth Colossi or armatures on foot, but I prefer to do so anyway. Not only does it give us an additional challenge, but it's also a way to stay consistent with the days where we had to kill them on foot for the experience point boost. Now, fighting our way through this Colossus and the armatures behind it will take quite a while, so I would like to use that time to talk a bit more about why we're doing Virmire now. Like I said earlier, the mission here on Virmire became available after Noveria, and for us, Noveria was only the second of 3 plot worlds. Those plot worlds are Therum, Ferrus and Noveria, of course not necessarily in that order, and no matter how you tackle them, once you have completed 2 of the 3 worlds, Virmire will unlock. That means in theory we could have done Virmire without Liara if we hadn't been to Therum first, or we could have done Virmire without meeting Saren's second-in-command Matriarch Benezia on Noveria, or we could have also come here without learning about Saren's interest in the mind control abilities of the Thorian on Pharaohs. All in all, I consider all 3 of those components to be pretty vital for the story of Mass Effect 1, and I wouldn't even think about doing Virmire before all 3 plot worlds are completed. Especially Ferrus and Noveria give a large amount of insight into what Saren is actually after, and having Liara on board, either as a squad member or as a romance option, has not hurt our experience either. Now, I know that there are people out there who do Virmire as soon as it's available, and from a roleplay standpoint I can somewhat understand that. Even if you don't really know what you're getting yourself into on Virmire, the mission seems to offer a much more realistic chance at catching Saren compared to going after Liara on Therum or going after Matriarch Benezia on Noveria. This might create a sense of urgency around the whole Virmire mission, a sense of urgency that I nonetheless think you should resist. For me personally, from an emotional standpoint, Virmire really offers the most if it's done as late as possible, after you have bonded with your squad both in missions and through dialogue. Without spoiling anything, Virmire and its aftermath hold quite a few intense moments with your squad members in store, and I think those moments are best experienced if you have already built some form of relationship with those squad members. Now, let's go back to the situation at hand. Maybe you can already see it in the distance. Behind the Geth Colossus we're currently fighting there is another structure. That structure is actually a second gatehouse, and one of its most prominent features is a large anti-air gun on the roof. And that anti-air gun is the reason why we have to take the ground approach, because we of course don't want to risk losing the Normandy. Now, while it looks like we're only a few minutes away from disabling that gun, and therefore clearing the way for the Normandy to swoop in, that is actually not quite the case. What you currently see on the top right of your screen is a clip from about 1.5 minutes ago. We had just destroyed the first Geth Colossus here, and even though it was hardly noticeable, we passed a crossroads. Both ways would eventually lead to the same gatehouse at the end, but as you can see, we picked the left one. That means the right one remains unexplored by us and, more importantly, still defended by the Geth. Of course, we cannot let that slide, and so instead of proceeding right to the gatehouse, we will now return. After all, there are more Geth to take care of, and Commander Shepard is a very thorough person. Now, if you don't want to go for the completionist playstyle and just want to choose one of the two ways and stick with it, then you might be happy to hear that there is actually a small difference between the two. While the way on the left has 3 armatures and 1 Geth Colossus in store for us, the way on the right is slightly easier with only 2 armatures and also 1 Colossus. To be fair, that is not much of a difference, especially since the 3rd armature on the left is all on its own and therefore easily taken care of. Still, if you're looking for the easiest way, or maybe also the way with the most experience points, then this information might be helpful for you. Of course, I cannot guarantee that those numbers will also apply on lower difficulties, and I'm also not quite sure whether or not they're true for the console versions of the game. Now, one last Geth Colossus stands between us and the second gatehouse, and I hope that you're happy to hear that this second gatehouse is also our second to last encounter with the Geth in this episode. I mean, we have pretty much been in combat non-stop for the last 10 minutes or so, and while there is enough variety in our enemies to keep things somewhat interesting, I find that especially these last few minutes with the Geth Colossi and armatures really drag out a bit. I admit that it's probably more of a problem when you try to add commentary to the whole thing, because the combat is pretty straightforward and at this level also not particularly challenging, so in terms of what's happening on screen there's really not all that much to talk about. Apart from that, I still think that the approach to the Salarian base camp is rather well done, because this long combat sequence where we find Geth pretty much around every corner, that really gives the feeling that at the end of all this there is something that the Geth really don't want us to reach. And that of course in turn increases the anticipation for what that might be, so the whole sequence serves as a nice build-up, even though it's not the easiest one to talk over. And with the Colossus now taken out, we can finally approach the second gatehouse and hopefully deactivate the anti-air gun on the roof.
We must find a way to disable their artillery. En route.
Just like the first gatehouse a few minutes ago, this one isn't all that hard to clear. I would actually say it's easier. The first gatehouse had a few drones that could really do a lot of damage in a short time, and the second gatehouse only has a variety of Geth troopers and a lone Geth destroyer, which all in all I found a bit easier to deal with. Now apparently, at least according to the Mass Effect wiki, this second gatehouse is also supposed to have a few more Geth hoppers protecting the last room, however in my playthrough they were simply not there. You will be able to see that for yourself in a few moments, and I don't really know whether or not that's an error in the wiki entry, or if it's something specific to my game. Maybe if some of you have played through this passage recently or are playing along with me, then maybe you could leave a quick comment telling me whether or not those hoppers appear for you. Just like in the first gatehouse, there is once again a bit of loot to be found. This crate over here is the first of 2 containers, the second one is in the final room we just talked about. Now, in the absence of the aforementioned Geth hoppers, this last room is only protected by a sniper and another destroyer, so even though we're playing on insanity difficulty, getting in won't be all that hard. Inside this last room we can then find 3 objects to interact with, the first one being the anti-air gun power controls. By deactivating those we can clear the way for Joker and the Normandy, so let's do that first.
I'm reading that the grid is down, Commander. On approach to the Salarian base now. Out.
Ready to move on your word, Shepard.
With the anti-air gun taken out, we can now also open the vehicle gates, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get the Mako through here. Last but not least, we can loot the secure weapon locker, and then it's time to return to the Mako, which we will once again do a bit faster than normal to save us some time. Back inside, we can now leave the second gatehouse behind us and go straight for number 3, but not before we get to witness an awesome flyby about the Normandy. Then, just around the corner, more Geth have hunkered down in the third and last gatehouse, and once again the vehicle gates are closed, so we have no other option but to clear out our enemies and open those gates before we can proceed. Once again, the fight here is not terribly difficult, but it's still a good idea to take out enemies like the rocket troopers first, because apart from 2 Geth destroyers on the upper level, these ones have probably the most firepower. That upper level is then actually relatively well defended, 3 shock troopers and 2 Geth destroyers, that is a formidable group of enemies. However, thanks to Liara's singularity, we can disable the shock troopers long enough. That allows us to focus on the destroyers first and take them out, before we can then eliminate the shock troopers one after the other. Alternatively, using AI hacking on one of the destroyers would probably also work pretty nicely here. With the enemies now out of the way, we can begin to look for some loot, and once again the gatehouse has 2 containers for us to discover. The first one is a bit hidden in the corner over to the right here, and the second one will be, as usual, in the room at the end. In that same room we can also find the vehicle gate controls, so let's activate those to open our way through.
That was the final gate. Our path to the Salarian camp should be clear from here.
Then it's one more round of loot inside a hard decryption weapon locker, and now for the third and final time we can speed things up until we're back inside of the Mako. And now, after passing the third gatehouse, nothing and nobody stands between us and the Salarian base camp, so let's just put the pedal to the metal and speed things up slightly, because the way is still quite long.
Commander, Normandy's touched down at the base, but it looks like we're grounded. The Salarian Captain can explain when you get here.
There is the Salarian camp.
So what are we supposed to do now?
Stay put until we can come up with a plan.
Well, Captain, nice to finally meet you. Maybe you can give us a quick situation overview.
Are you in charge here? What's the situation?
I'm Captain Kirrahe, 3rd Infiltration Regiment STG. You and your crew have just landed in the middle of a hot zone. Every AA gun within 10 miles has been alerted to your presence.
And that means we once again can't use the Normandy. So, any idea on how to deal with that?
What are we supposed to do in the meantime?
We stay put until the Council sends the reinforcements we requested.
We are the reinforcements.
What? You're all they sent? I told the Council to send a fleet.
Well, there might have been some communication problems.
We couldn't understand your transmission. They sent me to investigate.
That is a repetition of our task. I lost half my men investigating this place.
So what have you found?
Saren's base of operations. He set up a research facility here, but it's crawling with Geth and very well fortified.
A research facility? Well, that's new. Any idea what he's researching?
What's Saren researching?
He's using the facility to breed an army of Krogan.
How is that possible?
Apparently, Saren has discovered a cure for the Genophage.
So, next to an army of Geth, Saren is now also working on an army of Krogan. Wonderful.
The Geth are bad enough, but a Krogan army? He'd be almost unstoppable.
Exactly my thoughts. We must ensure that this facility and its secrets are destroyed.
Destroyed? I don't think so. Our people are dying. This cure can save them.
If that cure leaves this planet, the Krogan will become unstoppable. We can't make the same mistake again.
We are not a mistake.
Is he going to be a problem? We already have enough angry Krogan to deal with.
To be honest, Captain, I don't think Wrex will be something to worry about.
He'll be fine. I'll talk to him.
I'd appreciate that, Commander. My men and I need to rethink our plan of attack. Can you give us some time?
Looks like we don't really have any other options now, have we?
Go ahead, Captain. I'll come back soon.
We won't be long, Commander. In the meantime, if you need any supplies, you can talk to Commander Rentola. He's in one of the tents nearby.
Looks like things are a bit of a mess.
Yeah. I wouldn't be so worried if it wasn't for Wrex. He looks like he's gonna blow a gasket.
So, what's your take on the situation with Wrex?
You think I should go talk to him?
It wouldn't hurt. Well, it might actually. Just do it carefully.
Once again, I think we can handle this.
Wrex doesn't worry me. He'll fall in line.
If you say so. But I'm gonna keep my eye on him, if it's all the same to you.
Alright, now before we deal with Wrex, let's quickly do a bit of shopping.
Greetings, human. I am Commander Rentola. I can provide you with supplies for the upcoming mission. Anything else, I suggest you speak with Captain Kirrahe.
Well, I can't imagine you offering all that much.
Just tell me what you have available.
We have limited reserves. We requested a fleet to destroy Saren's base. Instead, they sent you.
Yeah, and I would suggest we start thinking about how we can deal with that instead of whining.
Your request never came through. We'll just have to make do.
That much is clear.
Now, please show us what you have available.
Let me see what you have.
What little there is.
There is actually only one item that we need to buy here, and that is the Amarli Council license. And by purchasing that license, we now own all the licenses in the game, meaning that at least in theory, we now have access to all weapons and armors. And that brings us to the highlight of this video. We are now going to talk to Wrex. That whole Genophage thing seems to bother him quite a lot, and so before we continue the hunt for Saren, it's probably a good idea to get on the same page.
This isn't right, Shepard. If there's a cure for the Genophage, we can't destroy it.
Well, if that cure is used to breed an army of Krogan for one of the most dangerous men in the galaxy, I respectfully disagree.
Calm down, Wrex. I'm not the enemy here. Saren's the one you should be mad at.
Really? Saren created a cure for my people. You want to destroy it. Help me out here, Shepard. The lines between friend and foe are getting a little blurry from where I stand.
Are you honestly telling us that you truly consider Saren an option at this point?
I shouldn't have to explain that to you, Wrex.
Indulge me. I've been loyal to you so far. Hell, you did more for me than my family ever did. But if I'm going to keep following you, I need to know we're doing it for the right reasons.
Now, very important dialogue decision right here. Both the I wouldn't do this otherwise and we are dialogue options are only available because we completed Wrex's loyalty mission. Picking either one of those options would give us 28 Paragon points and calm Wrex down. Now, of course, we do want to calm him down, but ideally we want to do so and gain renegade points in the process. And for that reason, we will pick the third option.
All you need to know is that I'm giving you an order to fall in line.
So that's it. All this time, and that's all I get from you. How can you not see what this means to the Krogan? This base can't be destroyed. I won't allow it.
Now, spoiler alert, it is actually possible for Wrex to die here. Any of the three dialogue options on the right will lead to his death, either at the hands of Shepard himself, or from a shot by Ashley who tries to protect Shepard. The only two options to calm Wrex down and keep him alive are on the left, requiring either 8 Charm or 8 Intimidate points. The Charm option would once again give us 28 Paragon points, while Intimidate only gives us 9 Renegade points, but that's still more than nothing.
Saren doesn't care about these Krogan. They're tools, puppets. He'll destroy them as soon as they're no longer useful to him. Is that what you want for your people?
No, we were tools for the Council once. To thank us for wiping out the Rachni, they neutered us all. I doubt Saren will be as generous. All right, Shepard. You've made your point. I don't like this, but I trust you enough to follow your lead. Just one thing. When we find Saren, I want his head.
Alright, we have successfully calmed Wrex down and avoided the loss of a squad member, and I think it's time for a quick breather now. In my opinion, this was one of the most important conversations in the entire game, and there will be a few more equally important ones in the next episodes. For today, however, I think we can make the cut here, and I can say thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.